Hi everyone, and welcome to the review on the proportionality and variation work. If you want to have a go at the do now task on the screen, so you've got a question on the left and a question on the right, and then resume playing when you want me to go through the answers. So, for the first question, h varies directly to the cube of c. Hopefully you remember we write this as h with the proportionality symbol, and it's directly to the cube of c, so that means c cubed. So here's our relationship here, and from that we know that that would give us the formula h equals k, which remember is a constant of proportionality, multiplied by c cubed. So we get h equals k c cubed. Then we use the information we're given to input into here to work out k, so that then we will get our formula to be able to express h in terms of c. So when h is equal to 40, c is equal to 2. And then if I work this out, so I get that 40 is equal to, or 2 cubed is 8, so 40 is equal to 8k. Switch this around if you feel more comfortable. So 8k is equal to 40. So that must mean dividing by 8 that k is equal to 5. Put that back into our formula. So replace k with 5. We will get that h is equal to 5c cubed. And that's the answer for expressing h in terms of c. Now we use this in part B. Find the value of h when c equals 5. So let's write out our formula. This is what I would do in an exam as well. So when c equals 5, so h will be equal to 5 multiplied by 5 cubed. So 5 cubed is 125, multiplied by 5 would give us that h is equal to 625. For the next question, a and b are positive numbers. A is inversely proportional to b, so this would give us this relationship here. Remember that a is here, and then inversely proportional means the reciprocal of b, so it becomes a is proportional sign with 1 over b, and this would give us the formula a equals k divided by b. Now let's use the information we're given to work out what the constant of proportionality is. So when a equals 4, b is equal to 36. So you can see I've replaced a with 4 and the b with 36. Now when we've got inverse proportionality, remember the constant of proportionality is found by multiplying the two values together that we're given. So in this case we get that k is equal to 144. Let's pop that back into our formula here. So our relationship is a is equal to 144 divided by b. Now we can use this to answer the question. So find the value of a when b is equal to a. So this is a different way of asking a question. We've not seen one of this type so far, but it is in one of the revision questions, or one of the review questions a bit later on. So let's look at this. All we need to do is, I want b to be equal to a. So all I'm going to do is replace b with a here. So a will be equal to 144 divided by a. Now, to get rid of the divide by a, if I multiply up by a, well, a multiplied by a will give me a squared. So a squared is equal to 144. So taking the square root, a will either be 12 or negative 12. But remember, the question said a and b are positive numbers, so we must take the positive answer. So a will be equal to 12. So remember from our lessons then to follow these steps to solve proportionality problems. So step 1, set up the proportion statement using the proportionality symbol with letters or symbols to represent the variables. Step 2, set up the equation using a constant of proportionality. Step 3. Use the given information to work out the value of the constant of proportionality. Step 4. Substitute the value of the constant of proportionality into the equation and use the equation to find the unknown values. Step 5. If you are asked to sketch or identify a graph, it will always be, if it's directly proportional, a straight line starting from the origin, and the gradient of the graph will depend on the value of the constant of proportionality. And if you think back to when we've looked at directly proportional to the square and the cube, they've kind of been U-shaped graphs with the cubic one slightly steeper. The inverse proportion ones, if you have a look back as well, remember to identify what those graphs look like. You just need to be able to recognise the shape of the graphs. If you've forgotten, go back to the other PowerPoints and have a look. So, now there are 15 review questions. Now you're more than welcome to print off the review questions and have a go. The answers are at the end of this recording or at the end of the PowerPoint, or you're happy to work through these with me. So, question number 1, y is proportional to the square root of x. That means y, it probably should say directly in here, but if it doesn't, always assume it's direct. So y is directly proportional to the square root of x. Remember, this gives us the equation, the formula, y equals k times the square root of x. Now let's use two of the values in the table we're given. So x equals 25 and y equals 10. So y equals 10, replace the y with 10. X is 25, so this will be k multiplied by the square root of 25. Now the square root of 25 is 5. So if we just work backwards here, that would mean 10 divided by 5 would give us k. So k in this instance is equal to 2. So we get that y is equal to 2 times the square root of x. Now we can use this to complete the table. So if y is 20, so when y is 20, we can work out what x is. So dividing by 2 will give me what the square root of x is. So 10 is equal to the square root of x. If I square to get backwards, that must mean that x is 100. Similarly, if x is 400, that one's slightly easier. So y would be equal to 2 times the square root of 400. Now we know the square root of 400, or hopefully you should, is 20, because 20 times 20 gives us 400. So that must mean that y is 40. Now if we have a look at this then, so remember our equation, y is found by 2 times the square root of x. So if x is 25, if we take the square root of it, that will give us 5, and double it, that gives us 10. Here, so I can check, I've got 100, if I take the square root of it, that will be 10, and double it, that will give me 20. So I know this is correct. Here, so 400, if I take the square root of it, that will be 20, and double it, that will give me the 40. Question 2. The energy E of an object moving horizontally is directly proportional to the speed V of the object. So E is directly proportional to the speed V. And remember that this would give me the formula E equals kV. Now let's use the information given when the speed is 10 meters per second, so that was the V. I'm going to replace the speed with 10. The energy is 40,000 joules, so I'm going to replace energy, capital E, with that. Now I can work backwards to get what K is, so 40,000 divided by the 10 would give me K, so K in this instance must be 4,000. So putting that back into my formula, I've got that the energy E is equal to 4,000 multiplied by the speed. So now we can use this. Well, actually this is the answer to part A. So E is equal to 4000V. Now I can use this to work out part B. Find the speed of the object when the energy is 14,400 joules. I'm going to replace the energy with 14,400. And if I divide this by 4,000, I will be able to work out what V is. So if you type this into your calculator, it simplifies it to 18/5, which is equal to 3.6. And because it was a speed, we're trying to find the unit for speed in the question is meters per second. So the answer is 3.6 meters per second. Question 3, we've got y is inversely proportional to the cube root of x. So y, our proportionality symbol, inversely proportional, remember that means the reciprocal 1 over the cube root of x. Let's be really precise here. Remember, this means that y is equal to a constant of proportionality multiplied by 1 over the cube root of x, and we just replace the k on the top of the fraction. So part A, find an expression for y in terms of x. Don't be tempted to write this as the answer. Remember, we need to use the information we're given to work out what k is. So when y equals 8, so replace y with 8, x is also, well, x is equal to 1/8. So that would be the cube root of 1/8. So if I think about that, I want to know the cube root of 1/8. So what do I multiply by itself 3 times to give me 1/8? And if you think about multiplying fractions, because we want a 1 on the top, we're going to have a 1 on the top of each of these, and then hopefully you're going to use, it's going to be 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 gives me 8. So the cube root of 1/8 is actually a half. You could have worked this out in your calculator. So 8 is equal to k divided by a half. Now I'm just going to write that as 0.5. So to work out k, I'm going to do 8 multiplied by 0.5. So k will be 4. So an expression for y in terms of x. So our formula then is replacing the 4 into here. We get y equals 4 over the cube root of x. Now we're going to use this. So for part B, part 1, find the value of y when x is 1/125th. So y is equal to 4 divided by the cube root of 1 over 125. You can type this into your calculator if you like using the fraction button. Or you can think about this, the cube root of 125. Well, hopefully you can spot that it will be a fifth, because a fifth times a fifth times a fifth. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. So you can spot that this is a fifth. And if you think about a fifth is equivalent to 0.2. And 4 divided by 0.2 will give us 20. Because there's 5 1/5 or 5 0.2s in a whole one, so there'll be 20 of them in 4 whole ones, but you could have typed this into a calculator. For part 2, the value of x when y equals 2. Let's just get rid of a little bit of working out, so I've got a bit of space. So going back to my formula here, it was this one we were using with the one with k in. So the value of x when y equals 2, so if y is 2, I've got 4 divided by the cube root of x. Where would I go from here? I'd multiply up by my cube root of x. I've got 2 lots of the cube root of x is equal to 4. Divide by my 2, so I get that the cube root of x is equal to 2. And to reverse, or to undo the cube root, I want to cube, so we get that x is equal to 8. Question 4. The mass of a cube is directly proportional to the cube of its side. Now here we're not given the algebra to use, so let's use m for the mass of the cube and let's use s for the length of its side. So m is directly proportional to the cube of its side. So that will give me the formula m equals ks cubed. So now then let's work out what k is, because we're told a cube with a side of 4 has a mass of 320 grams. So the mass will be 320 and the side will be 4. So we know then, so 4 cubed is 64, and doing 320 shared by 64 gives me that k equals 5. So I've got my formula m equals 5s cubed. Now I can use that to work out what it wants me to do in the question. So it asks me to calculate the side length, so I want s, of a cube made of the same material with a mass of 36,450 grams. So let's write out my formula. And I'm going to replace the mass with 36,450. So if I divide that by 5, that will give me that 7,290 is equal to s cubed. And then if I take the cube root in my calculator, so remember you want the cube root key, we get that s is equal to 19.4 centimetres to 1 decimal place. Question 5. Y is directly proportional to the cube of x. So y is directly proportional to the cube of x, and this will give us our formula y equals kx cubed. Let's use the information to work out what k is. So when y equals 16, so I'm going to replace the y with 16, x is equal to 3. So I'll get 3 cubed here. Now I know 3 cubed is 27, so I get 16 equals k times 27. So I'll get 16 27ths is equal to k. Now this doesn't simplify and gives us a big long decimal in the calculator if we have a look what it is. So I'm going to leave it as a fraction in my formula. So I'm going to have as my formula y equals 16 27ths x cubed, and it's better to leave it in this natural form if this is the case. Now it asks me to find the value of y when x equals 6. So I'm going to replace the x with 6. And if you work this out in your calculator, it comes out nicely that y must be 128. Question 6. D is directly proportional to the square of m. D is directly proportional to the square of m. So we'll write this as m squared. Remember, this gives us the formula D equals k times m squared. Remember where k is our constant of proportionality. We're told that D equals 20 when m equals 2. We're going to use this now to work out what k is to be able to express D in terms of m. So D is 20 when m is 2, so 2 squared is 4. 20 divided by 4 will give me here that k is equal to 5. So replacing k with 5 here, D is equal to 5m squared, and this is expressing D in terms of m. So D is equal to 5m squared. Part B, work out the value of D when m equals 7. So D equals 5m squared. So if m equals 7, this will be 5 lots of 7 squared, which is 245. So that's the answer for this one. Part C, work out the positive value of m. So because we've got squares in here, we can probably straight away assume we're going to have to take a square root, which would give us a positive answer or a negative answer. So we would just take the positive one. Let's try. So we've got d equals 5m squared again. Work out the positive value of m when d equals 45. So I'm going to replace d with 45. So here if I divide by 5, I'll get that 9 is equal to m squared, or I can switch this round if you feel more comfortable. So yes, and now take the square root. So m is equal to either 3 or negative 3, but it wanted the positive value of m. So m equals 3. Question 7, p is directly proportional to q cubed. So p directly proportional to q cubed, and this gives us the formula p equals k q cubed. Now when q equals 3, p equals 270. So I'm going to replace p with 270, q with 3. Now we know 3 cubed is 27. Oops, not 2 to the power 7, 27. So 270 is equal to 27k. So 270 divided by 27 will give me 10. So k is equal to 10. So I've got that p equals 10q cubed. So that's my formula. It didn't ask me for my formula, but remember I always work this out because that then helps me to answer this part here. Find the value of p when q equals 2. So if q equals 2, that will be 10 times 2 cubed. 2 cubed is 8 times by 2. So the answer must be 80. Question 8. Two variables x and y are known to be proportional to each other. When x equals 10, y equals 25. Find the constant of proportionality k if y is proportional to x. Well, if y is proportional to x, this gives us the formula y equals kx. We're told when x equals 10, y equals 25. So if x equals 10, this is 10k. So if we divide by 25, 25 shared by 10 will give me k. So for this one, k is equal to 2.5. Part B, if y is proportional to x squared, this gives me the formula y equals kx squared. Again, y is 25 when x is 10. So here 10 squared will be 100, so this will give me 100k. And 25 divided by 100 will give me that k, in this instance, is equal to 0.25. Part C, y is inversely proportional to x here. So this gives us the formula y equals k divided by x. Remember, to get k, we just multiply the two values together, because if I replace y with 25 and I replace x with 10, 25 times 10 will give me k. So k here is 250. For part D, we have the formula the square root of y is inversely proportional to x. So that will give me this formula here. So if y is 25, this gives me the square root of 25 is equal to k divided by 10. The square root of 25 is 5 multiplied by 10. So this would give me that k equals 50. Remember though that the square root of 25 could be negative 5. So it could actually be negative 50 as well. Question 9. Y is directly proportional to the cube root of x. So y is directly proportional to the cube root of x. This gives us the formula y equals k times the cube root of x. When x equals 27, y equals 6. So y equals 6 when x is 27, and now I know the cube root of 27 is 3, because 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 again is 27. So 6 divided by 3 will give me k, so k will be 2. So this gives me the formula y equals 2 times the cube root of x. Now I'm going to use it to answer these. So part A, find the value of y when x is 125. So when x is 125, I want the cube root of 125, which I know is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 again is 125. So y is 2 times 5, so this here will give me an answer of 10. Then for part B, find the value of x when y equals 3. So let's start with our formula again. So I want the value of x when y is 3. So 3 is equal to 2 lots of the cube root of x. If I divide by 2, 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. So 1.5 is equal to the cube root of x. The inverse of the cube root of x is to cube. So 1.5 cubed will give me the answer for part B of 3.375. Question 10. The surface area A of a solid is directly proportional to the square of the depth. So A is directly proportional to the square of the depth. So this is what you should get. So your formula will be A equals KD squared. Now we're told when D equals 6, A equals 12 pi. So I'm going to replace A with 12 pi and D with 6. Well, 6 squared is 36. So then to get K will be 12 pi divided by 36, and 12/36 equal to a third. So K is equal to pi over 3, or a third pi. So putting that back into my formula, I get that A is equal to pi over 3 multiplied by D squared. So now find the value of A when D equals 12. Give your answer in terms of pi. So I've got pi over 3 multiplied by 12 squared, which I know is 144. And 144 shared by 3 is 48. So A must be 48 pi for this part here. So that one was 48 pi. For part B, find the value of D when A equals 27 pi. Let me just clear a bit of space for this one. So we've got our formula. We've got that A is equal to pi over 3 D squared. So this time A is equal to 27 pi. Try and join that in. Okay. So that's equal to pi divided by 3, and I want to work out what D is. So if I multiply up by the 3, that will give me 81, and divide by the pi, they will cancel out. So I will get the 81, so these cancel out. Multiplying up by the 3, I will get that 81 is equal to D squared. So D is equal to 9, or negative 9. Now, because we're talking about D being a depth, we can't have a negative depth, so we must have the answer of positive 9 here. Question 11. A is inversely proportional to the square of B. So this gives us 1 over B squared. So we get the formula A equals K over B squared. We're told when B equals 2, A equals 25. So A equals 25. B is 2, so 2 squared is 4. And 4 times 25 would give me that K equals 100. So my formula for A in terms of B, replacing K with 100, will be A equals 100 divided by B squared. So A equals 100 over B squared. Part B, calculate the value of A when B equals 5. So when b equals 5, well 5 5s are 25, so that will give me that a is equal to 4. Question 12, we've got a graphical one here. So the graph shows the relationship between y and x, and we've got the formula y equals kx cubed. So we use the graph. The graph tells us when x equals 20, y equals 1,000. So y equals 1,000 when x equals 20. So that means then we can work out from this, so 1,000 divided by 20 cubed, if you work that out, that comes out that k is equal to 1/8. Just pop that into your calculator. So we get the formula y equals 1/8 x cubed. Now work out the value of y when x equals 10. So replacing x equals 10 into here, 1/8 multiplied by 10 cubed comes out that y is equal to 125. Question 13, the frequency f of sound is inversely proportional to the wavelength w. So the frequency f of sound is inversely proportional to the wavelength w. Remember, that's the reciprocal of it. So this gives us the formula f equals k over w. A sound with a frequency of 36 Hertz has a wavelength of 20.25 meters. We're going to multiply these together to work out what k is. So k is equal to 729. Replace that into our formula, so we get that f equals 729 divided by w. Now we can use this for part A, calculate the frequency when the frequency and the wavelength have the same numerical value. Now that's like the do now question we looked at. I want these to have the same value, so let's just write that f is equal to 729 divided by f. I'm making these the same. To solve this, if I multiply up by f times f is f squared. So I get that f squared is equal to 729, and if I take the square root, that will give me, so now the square root of 729, this gives me for part A is 27 Hertz. Obviously I don't want the negative answer here, I want the positive solution. Part B, explain why the wavelength could not be 0. Well, that would mean I was dividing mathematically there by 0. And remember, I cannot do this. I cannot divide by 0 in maths. So that is why for part B. Question 14. Y is proportional to x squared. So I've got the y equals kx squared here. When x equals 6, y equals 324. So I'm going to replace y with 324. I will replace x with 6. 6 6s are 36. So that will give me here then, 324 divided by 36 will give me that k is equal to 9. So my formula here is y equals 9x squared. Now it asks me to work out the values of a and b on the graph. So the value of a is the x value when y is 729. So if we replace with y with 729, I can work backwards to work out what x is. So 729 shared by 9 gives me 81. And I can see from the graph that the x is the positive answer. So taking the square root of 81, I will get that a should be 9. For the value of b, now the value of b is the y value when the x value is 4. So if I use my formula again, so I've got y equals 9x squared. This time I am going to replace the x with 4. This is easier. So 9 times 4 squared will give me what the y value is that I need, and that is 144. Final question then, y and x are positive quantities. Y is inversely proportional to x squared. hopefully you recognise that this is the curved part of the graph. When y equals 160, x is equal to 20. So let's use this. So y is inversely proportional to x squared. Remember, inverse is the 1 over. So this gives me the formula y equals k over x squared. So when y equals 160, x is equal to 20. So 20 times 20 is 400. So multiplying these together would give me that k is equal to 64,000. So this gives me the formula y equals 64,000 divided by x squared. So this is my first formula. Now if you've looked at the review questions without looking at the video, you'll notice that they've got z's in here, which really they wanted to show you the difference between this curve and this line and make them different functions. But because our graph is on x and y axes and we eventually want to solve them simultaneously, I needed these to be x's, so strictly putting z's wasn't correct, so that's why I've changed these to x's here. So for the next part, y and x are both positive. Y is directly proportional to x, which is this line here. So y is directly proportional to x. Remember, gives me the formula y equals kx. Now I'm told when y is 50, x is also 50. So that must mean that k equals 1. So I've got the formula y equals x. Now the diagram shows both of the relationships and asks me to find the value of x at the point of intersection. Remember, this means I need to solve them simultaneously. So if the y value is equal to the x value, I can replace this y value here with x. So x is equal to 64,000 divided by x squared. And now if I solve this, if I multiply up by x squared, well, x times x squared is x cubed. So I get that x cubed is equal to 64,000. And if I take the cube root of 64,000, I will get that x equals 40 as required. So if you did want to have a look at any of the questions, there are all the answers collectively together. So now you have a knowledge recall on chapter 21 to complete. So good luck with this.